So, Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to the second session of the Bhagavad Gita. So, today's session is going to basically be the context of the time it was written and how it was written. And the context is basically the Mahabharat. So, we're going to come to know how everything happened and how Arjun was in such a big dilemma at the time. So, Prabhuji, could you please let me present the.
You should be able to.
Okay. Yes, I can.
Good, good.
Is it loading?
It's loaded and it's loaded, yes.
So, yes, as it says, the historical context of the Bhagavad Gita. So, the Mahabharata is a really, really important scripture, or as we call it, an itihasa, and it was composed by the sage and literary incarnation of the Lord Srila Vyasadeva. Srila Vyasadeva has written a lot of scriptures, and he's also written the Srimad Bhagavatam. And well, in the Mahabharata specifically, however, is composed of 110,000 verses, which makes it the longest poem in the world. Because remember, obviously, it's a Gita, so it was sung. The Bhagavad Gita appears as an episode in the Mahabharata, and the Mahabharata is considered a Smriti. So a Smriti is that which is remembered. So we have Shruti and Smriti. If you guys would remember last week what we were talking about, and it's considered a smriti in one way, and it's also considered a shruti. However, so the Bhagavad Gita is considered a shruti because it's directly the word of Krishna. Um, Smriti can always change according to time and circumstances. So the Mahabharata, it can in some ways, the story can change. For example, if you've seen it on TV, they might sort of change a few details. However, the Bhagavad Gita will always remain the same because it's directly the word of God, so it cannot be changed. So the name Mahabharat means the story of the great Bharatas. The Bharatas is known, like they're basically our ancestors, and we know them as the Bharatas, which is why India's name, many times you would see many people call it Bharat, and that's actually the traditional spiritual name of India. India was given it was a name given by, of course, when we were taken over by the British Empire. That was the name given to us then. But before that, it was always Bharat. And King Bharat was the early ancestor of both the Pandavas and the Kauravas. In the war, as we go on, you're going to learn that these were the two sides that fight each other in the Great War. And it's Bharat is generically used, is a word used for the Indian race. And so the Mahabharata is referred to as the great story of India. King Bharat was unique because he did not appoint his sons as king. He looked more at qualities rather than like his sons. He wanted the king to be a qualified one rather than someone from his own family. And so, after many generations, King Shantanu became the king of Hastinapura, which was like it was a really big place. It was the capital of Bharat, if you would like, at that time. It was a really famous place. Um, Shantanu was married to the beautiful Ganga, who was the river goddess in disguise. She agreed to marry him as long as he never questioned her actions. Over the years, they had 7 sons, but Ganga threw each one into the river. And of course, Shantanu was distressed by this behavior, but he kept his promise. So that's Ganga Mai, and she's putting her first 7 sons in water, when you get the picture, of course. And that's Shantanu looking from behind the tree. Of course, he's wondering, wow, what is she doing? But she so when so when that happened to the first 7 sons, when her eighth son was born, Shantanu asked his wife who she really was and why she had done this. So of course he would have him at that time, he broke his promise because he was really, really distressed, because at that time he also had to find um his new son that would be king. And so if she always kept, taking these children into water, who would be their next successor? So when their eighth son was born, Ganga revealed herself and told them that her children had once been celestial beings, but were cursed to become humans. She had ended their punishment by quickly drowning them immediately at birth. So, of course, as we follow Sanatan Dharma, we believe in reincarnation. So when uh, because they were cursed, she didn't want them to be in this material world. So she ended up drowning them in Ganga water because she wanted them to be free of this world and go back to, end their punishment in a sense. But of course, since Shantanu had questioned her actions, she had to leave him. And so her eighth son's name was Devrata. Later, he's going to be known as Bhishma. But because she left, he was then trained by great personalities such as Parshuram, Vishishta, and Brihaspati. Um, Now, Devrata is better known by his later name Bhishma, and he receives this name because it means of terrible resolve. It's of terrible resolve because he vowed not to marry or have children. That was his vow, and his father wanted to marry again, so he married Satyavati, who was the mother of Vyasadeva, who has written the scripture, of course. And but the conditions of the marriage were that the second wife would be the mother of a king someday. So the children that he would have with Satyavati would have to be the king. Now, honoring his father's wishes to marry, Bhishma makes this vow, guaranteeing that he will never claim the throne and always protect whoever is on it. So he would so Bhishma would in one way be the protector of a throne, but he would never sit on the throne himself. Now his vow was a pretty powerful one, and you can see, well, when the picture loads next, you're going to see that all the gods are looking down at him. They're all pretty struck with his vow, but they do respect him at the same time. So it was a very big thing. So years later, one of Bhishma's half brothers, Chitrangada, dies in battle, and the other, Vichitravirya, becomes old enough to marry. So, on behalf of his half brother, Bhishma abducts three sisters. So at that time, we used to have things called swayamvars, where the king would present his daughter for marriage, and a lot of kings to be would gather and try to win whatever challenge there was to try gain hand in marriage. But Bhishma completely disregarded that rule, and what he did was he abducted three sisters, Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika, and he decided to fight off all other kings that wanted to, gain their hand in marriage. On returning home, he learns that one of the sisters, Amba, had already chosen a suitor. So she had already fallen in love with someone, and Bhishma allows her to leave, but her beloved does not want her anymore. Now, basically what happened was because she was abducted, well, Bhishma found out and then he let her go, but then who she wanted did not want her anymore because she was already taken by another man. Now abandoned, she returns to Bhishma and demands that he marry her. So because he was the one that abducted her, she felt that it would be best if he married her. And ever faithful to his vow, Bhishma refuses because he can't marry or have children due to his vow. Amba then vows that she will one day kill him, even though his father Shantanu had granted Bhishma the power to choose the day of his death. So in one way he had immortality, but Amba takes another vow that she will kill herself. The importance of vows are evident throughout the Mahabharata, so it's a really, really big theme because one vow changes everything. When both his half brothers die prematurely without children, Bhishma refuses to marry and have children. So he would not relinquish this vow, even though his celibacy makes no difference anymore. The young princesses must be given children, but who can father them? There are no other men in the family besides Bhishma. So that was another dilemma that came across. Then what happened is, so Satyavati, because she already had a firstborn son, which was Srila Vyasadeva, she decided to give the three queens, so Ambika and Ambalika, because
Two queens, yeah, that's right.
yeah,
Two
two queens,
queens.
because Amba had gone now.
Yeah.
So it was Ambika and Ambalika, and Vyasadev was told to give these children, and so he goes to them, but the princesses dislike him. Now it's not that they dislike him, but of course, Srila Vyasadeva is a sannyasi, and he lives in mountains, and he's in one way he's not well kept, of course, because uh, he just roams around, and he's really like into devotional service, so he doesn't really look after his body as much, apart from when he's praying. So he's not well kept, and in that sense they found it really hard to sort of look at him or be near him. And that was shown in their children as well. So the first queen, Ambika, she was the second. So the firstborn will be blind because she couldn't open her eyes to see Vyasadev. So she closes her eyes, and that's why Dhritarashtra, her son, is born blind. And then the second queen's son will be pale skinned because she became pale at his touch. As soon as she looked at him, she went colorless. And yeah, so these two were sort of not, I guess, in a way they had lost qualities. But then there was one maiden, I believe, and because Vyasadev wanted to make one more attempt, but the princesses sent their humble and attentive maidservant. So they sent a servant, and so thus Vyasa had a third son, the wise Vidura. Vidura is the one of the most reasonable. He's known to be really, that's the maid servant. She was really, really respectful. She didn't close her eyes or become pale, and so Vidura was basically a perfect child. He was really, really wise, and you'll see as we go on, he's probably one of the most reasonable as well. Since his brother, Dhritarashtra, although older, is blind and thus unfit for the throne, Pandu becomes a new king of Hastinapura. Now, Vidur wasn't allowed to become the son because his mother was a maidservant. She was not a queen. So Satyavati found him unfit in a way as well because his mother was a maidservant. So he was married to Kunti Devi and Madri. So Pandu was now married to two queens. And one day while hunting in a forest, Pandu shoots a gazelle in the act of mating. The gazelle was actually a Brahmin priest in disguise who curses him, saying that should Pandu mate with either of his two wives, he will die instantly. Knowing that he can never have children, Pandu resigns the throne and goes to live with his wives in the mountains. So he completely gives up everything he had at the palace because of his guilt and because he's unable to now have children. So he now himself feels that there is no point in being king, and he resigns and basically in a way takes sannyas as well. Kunti, his first wife, informs him that she possesses a magic power. So Kunti's magic power is that she can recite a mantra to a demigod and she can have a child by him. And I believe this is sun god. In the next, this is the sun god, and she has her first son Karan with Surya Dev. But apart from, I think that's a completely different story. Apart from him,
Yes, she actually wanted to test the boon that was given to her by Durvasa Muni. Does it actually work? Because he told her, you can call upon any demigod and he will give you a child. So she was not married at that time. And She thought, now, let me test it out. She called Suryadev, and he came, and she was shocked. What are you doing here? And he said, well, you called me and I've come. Go away. I'm not married. It doesn't matter. I've got to give you a child. And don't worry, your virginity will be remaining, your virtue will remain intact. So she got Kern, and she was shocked what to do with Kern, right? And
Yeah.
eventually,
So exactly like Babaji said, she wanted to put it to the test. She didn't actually believe that the that the boon was real, and she ended up actually putting Karan in like a little basket and just giving him away in the water. Um, of course, she prayed for his protection, but he had then found another mother and father. So when she informed Bandu of this power, Bandu was really, really happy because now he was like, yes, I can have some sons, you know, I can have successes of my own. So Yudhishthira, which is the firstborn, truthful, and virtuous son, he is born from the god of Dharma. Bhima, which is the strongest of men, he was born from the son of Vayu, who is the god of wind. And Arjuna, an irresistible warrior, son of Indra, he was born from the son of Indra. And then Madri, Pandu's second wife, makes use of this power too. So Kunti was always really, really giving. She let Madri have this power of her, and Madri was also able to have two sons of her own, which were Nakula and Sahadev. Thanks to his two wives, Bandu now has five sons directly descended from the gods, the Pandavas, and who are the main heroes of the Mahabharata, of course, apart from Krishna. Um, so this picture is of Bandu. That's Nakul and Sahadev in the middle. Madri is holding them, and on the very right there's Kunti. So years later, Pandu one day surrenders to his passion for Madri, and Pandu falls dead, fulfilling the curse. So, of course, he was given the curse that if he mates in any way, he will die, and he falls in that sort of trap. He falls in that passion for Madri, and so he dies. And then we have and then of course, because there's a funeral, and all the boys are really, really sad that their father has died. But now Madhuri also is she goes away, and now Kunti is left with all her five sons to raise. So meanwhile, Dhritarashtra had become king, and due to his blindness, this was a caretaker role, although he had other plans. So essentially, Dhritarashtra had always felt bad that he wasn't king, because he felt that because he was the firstborn, he would always get that respect of becoming king. But of course, his blindness was a quality that didn't fit a king at that time. And now temporarily, because Pandu had taken sannyas, he's gone to live in the mountains. Dhritarashtra was temporarily king, but of course, his greed got the best of him and he had other plans. He weds Gandhari in an arranged marriage. When she learns of her husband's blindness, she decides to cover her eyes with a blindfold, which she will never remove, to join him in his world of darkness. So, her being a respectful wife, she covers her eyes and tries to live a life that her husband would. So, in one way, that's her showing her loyalty. But Dhritarashtra always wanted someone who could see for him, and since she didn't do that, he was always kind of unhappy with her. Then, after an abnormally long pregnancy of 2 years, she gives birth to a ball of flesh. Vyasa tells her to split up the ball into 100 parts and put them in a jar of ghee. So essentially what happens is when they're put in these jars, it's like cocoons for them. And from those cocoons, those 100 sons are born, who are known as the Kauravas. Now the firstborn is called Duryodhana. Sinister omens of violence greet his arrival into the world. So everything that you could think is inauspicious would happen. There was jackals howling, strong winds blowing, fires raging. I'm pretty sure there was thunder, everything. And even Vyasadeva himself said that this first child will not be a good person. But of course, Dhritarashtra didn't listen. He did not care. Dhritarashtra worried about what all this means, but he still ignores all this advice that Vidura has given him, that Vyasadeva has given him. He still carries on. And Dhritarashtra was a weak ruler. He allowed physical blindness to become a refusal to face reality and unwillingness. So his physical ability got to him, and he always used to take it as a burden. And he felt really sorry for himself, and so he couldn't really make hard decisions. He would be easily led by his sons because he was so attached to them. And he continually blames fate, everything that doesn't really matter. He's sort of always first in line. The Pandavas and Kauravas fought constantly, with Duryodhan even trying to kill his fierce rival Bhima. So these boys had always had a rivalry from the start. Because the Pandavas were always they were raised in the forest. They were raised in the most humblest of conditions. They never used to have all the grandeur of the palace like these 100 Kauravas had. And so they would always, there would be like disrespectful fights in the middle, always mocking each other. And yeah, so this is there's a picture going to be on the screen of Duryodhana and his brothers trying to drown Bhima. One day, a teacher and a master of arms, Drona, so we call him Dronacharya, appears and offers his services to train the boys. But he has a secret mission: to avenge an insult made by a former friend. So he did really want to teach these boys, but his secret mission was to avenge insult, and he did this by so what we call Guru Dakshina is that once you're trained by a guru, you're required to give something back to the guru, and this could be in any form. Whatever the guru asks, you give to them. And his Guru Dakshina was that I want you to take over this friend's kingdom. When young, Drona was really close to Drupad, but years later, so Drupada was the king, or his friend that insulted him. But years later, when Drona went to see his childhood companion, now great king, he was scorned by Drupada because only equals can be friends. So Drupada had sort of this superiority complex that because now he was a king, he can't be friends with someone like Dronacharya. So as payment for his training as Guru Dakshina, Drona asks the Pandavas to avenge him. Being mighty warriors, they conquer Drupada's kingdom and hand it over to Drona. He promptly gives his former friend half his kingdom back, saying, "Now we are equals." So that's actually kind of smart if you think about it. His revenge was not to kill him, but just to now obtain that respect and be friends. For revenge, so of course Drupada felt really respected. Like, you've taken half of my kingdom by sending your students to take it over. How could you? So for revenge, Drupada has his children by sorcery born out of flames. So what we call yagya is what he did. And he already had a daughter named Shikandini, but he had two other children from the flames, and he had a son called Drishtadyumna, who was fated to kill Dronacharya. So no one could kill Dronacharya except Drishtadyumna. And an oracle says that daughter Draupadi will bring destruction on an unrighteous ruler. So he had these two children, and Drupada was always known to be sort of he always wanted a son. He thought that whatever his son could have done, his daughters wouldn't. But he soon later on learns that Draupadi was actually his fortune rather than anything else. Drupad also had a third child called Shikandani, And Chikandani was Amba reborn. So Amba was the queen who vowed to kill Bhishma. So of course reincarnation, she was reincarnated into a body that would allow her to kill Bhishma. Later in the war, Drona and Bhishma will fight on the side of the Kauravas due to their loyalty. So they had pledged to fight alongside Duryodhan and the Shasan and the Kauravas, but also because they're mortal enemies would fight with the Pandavas. So Drishtadyumna and Shikandani were on the Pandava side, and they were already enemies of Bhishma and Dronacharya. So they thought, might as well fight them while I'm at it. Um, Drona recognizes Arjuna's superiority as a master of arms, especially the bow, and favors him with special training. In a contest of skill, he tells each of the Pandavas to strike a target, the eye of a wooden bird in a tree. So this was where he recognizes Arjuna's power as an archer. Arjuna is known as one of the greatest archers ever born, of course, during that time. And he asks each of the princes in turn, "Oh prince, tell me what you see." And one by one they respond, "I see my teacher, I see my brothers, the tree and the bird." So they never say that it's just they see everything. They don't see the actual target, they see everything. And what was different with Arjuna was that he saw only the eye of the bird, just the eye. He saw his target clearest. And so none of the boys were able to hit the eye of the bird, but Arjuna was. And Dronacharya was really, really impressed with him all throughout. This was a wooden bird, by the way. It was not a real bird. They didn't kill for just random reasons at that time. So Dronacharya rewards Arjuna by giving him a supreme weapon, the Brahmastra. So if you've heard of this weapon, you would know that it's one of the most strongest weapons you would have at that time. And later, to show his students' prowess, Drona stages a tournament to display all the Guru's skill. However, a stranger appears who challenges Arjuna and equals him in archery. So this stranger is actually a boy who had been taking shiksha, who had been learning from Guru Dronacharya from, like, secretly, basically. Drona didn't know that he was learning from him, and you're not allowed to do that. You have to formally, speak to your guru if you will learn from them. That person was, oh wait, I said a different thing. Yeah, that was different. But also Kunti's first child also challenges Arjuna.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I was speaking about Ekalavya.
That's right.
Yeah. That's a different story, guys, my bad. But also Karna appears after a long time because he's trying to gain Dakshina as well. He's trying to learn how to become an archer. And that was Karna, who was Kunti's first son by the sun god. Um yeah, so that a picture that's gonna come on your screen now is of her really painfully pushing Karna away in a basket on the river of the Ganga, I believe. And Karna was of course also given the boon of having a golden sort of armor. He had armor and 2 earrings that would always protect him. So anyone that ever, tried to harm him in any way, the kavach or the armor would randomly, like, it would appear and save him from anything hitting him. And he was adopted by parents who were considered to be Shudras at that time in the caste system. So thus Karna was the older brother, essentially, of the Pandavas, because he was from the same mother. However, Karna is not aware of his real mother, and he was adopted by a chariot driver who was a Shudra at that time. The Pandavas mock his lowly social status, and they're like, "No, we're not going to fight with you. You're not even on our level yet." So from that, of course, Karna felt really, really disrespected, and Duryodhana basically gives Karna a small kingdom. And because of this, I guess you could say, burden, Karna thinks that, oh my gosh, you've given me so much. I now devote my life to you. So he he thinks he's friends with Duryodhan, but he's actually one of them now. He now works for them. Anything they say, he's convinced by, because he's so in that grateful mood that Duryodhana has given him so much. In that way, he also disregards his dharma. Um, that is I believe, him being crowned as the Raja of Anga. Yeah. Karna's lowly caste will haunt him throughout the Mahabharata. Later, at a contest to win Draupadi as bride, she rejects him outright because he was from a servant family. So even though he was crowned as king of a kingdom, they still didn't accept him. They still thought that he was from a servant family. And for a person who desired to be measured by his accomplishments, living under the shadow was unbearable. As a child of the sun, Karna was born with golden armor over his skin, and later the god Indra tricks Karna into giving his divine protection away. After Karna was born, Kunti remained a virgin, of course, and the Pandavas narrowly escape a plot by Duryodhana to burn them in a house made of highly flammable materials. So essentially, what happens is there's always like this back and forth where the Pandavas are always receiving from the Kauravas. Everything bad is always sort of created by the Kauravas and then pushed onto the Pandavas. And what happens is they decide to just yes, this is how they escape from the fire. It was a really flammable house, and they started to escape from it. They went through like an underground tunnel, I believe, and came out. And for months they live hiding in the forest because they were so hurt. They were so hurt that their own family tried to kill them. They were like, it's best to just stay in the forest. Sorry, my brother's coughing. One night, as Bhima keeps watch while the others are asleep, there appears a Rakshasa named Hidimbi, a man-eating ogre, one type of demon. Assuming the form of a beautiful woman, she falls madly in love with Bhishma, who fights and kills her venomous brother.
It's Beam,
Bhima
by the
and
way.
the magic.
Beam.
Pardon?
She falls in love with Beam.
Yes. My bad. Yeah, and then he kills her brother. Um, then these two have a powerful demon child called Gatotkaч. It says demon child. He's actually all right, to be honest. He helps the Pandavas later on. Um, and he swears to come to the aid of his father whenever necessary. The Pandavas, disguised as Brahmanas, attend the Swayamvara of Draupadi, and which is Swayamvara again is where, the ceremony is where she picks the suitor um, of hers. And Arjuna wins the archery contest easily. And Draupadi chooses him. So she's enticed by him from the start. So and actually behind all of this was Krishna. He revealed to everyone that Arjuna was here in the sort of, he was here dressed up as a brahmana. He was trying to hide his identity, and Krishna completely exposed him. And he was like, "No, this is what you're gonna do now. This you're gonna win Draupadi's hand in marriage." And so she was also really really pleased. I think, Babaji, it's 1:33. Should I keep going?
No, I think it's a good time to stop for questions. Yeah, good time. And then we can do part 2 next week, eh?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. That's good. In terms of Krishna recognized Arjun at this Swayamvar. And Arjun, all the other princes tried, but failed miserably.
Yeah.
So then Arjun was encouraged to take up the challenge. I'm not sure if Krishna encouraged him, because I don't think at that time they actually spoke.
I think Krishna was, so obviously he was present at the time of
Isn't, yeah,
Draupadi's
yeah,
Swayamvar, but
that's right.
he kept hinting, and I think Draupadi was also, I
Ah,
think
even the Brahmins
there
can
was
do
a
it.
little,
Yes,
yeah, there
yes.
was a little pastime where Draupadi had seen
Yeah.
Arjuna
Okay.
in like Shiv Mandir, and she was already enticed by him.
Yeah, yeah. Good one. Good one. Yeah, that's it. Well done. Well done. Congratulations. Any questions for Pari? Pari? Ishwari, Kishwari, yes, go for it.
We have 4 questions.
Wow.
Why is Bharat named Bharat? What is the reason?
Bharat, why is Bharat named Bharat? So, so because it's a traditional name because of course our ancestors were all named Bharatas. So King Bharata was, I guess you could say, he started that line of the Indian race. So he was one of the oldest ancestors, and his name, to honor him, was given to India as Bharat. So that it's like we renamed that country because of course the British Empire and whatever they did. But originally, to honor him, that country was called Bharat because everyone had come from him and his descents basically.
And he was a great ruler. And out of respect for his rule, they called it Bharat. It had many names before the King Bharat. But it was renamed after this righteous king. That's correct. And our Guru Maharaj is always very particular about calling that tract of land Bharat, because that's a spiritual name. India is a name, as you said, given by foreign rulers. And it's a very insulting name. It's short for indigenous, those indigenous people there. So they're Indians, like wherever the British went, it was either Indian or Red Indian or some other Indian.
Yeah, many people don't know about that. It's a way to demean, but that's why we call it Bharat.
Mm. Good. Well done.
Good question.
How did the celestial beings, which Ganga Mata, she was putting in the river, how did they get cursed?
Honestly, I have no clue.
I have a bit of a clue. There were the 8 Vasus, and the Vasus were, as you said, celestial beings. They're heavenly beings. Now, there was Vashishta had a amazing Gomata. She's known as Surabhi. She was a wish-fulfilling cow, and she would be able to, anything that Vashish wanted, this Gomata would be able to produce. And so one of the Vasus became really enticed to obtain Surabhi. And he asked Vashisht, and Vashisht said, no, she's been handed to me to be in my care, and I don't exploit her. Well, you will exploit her. So he refused. Now, this Vasu decided to steal Surabhi, and he had 7 brothers, and they all helped him steal the cow. And as a result, Vashisht found out, and he cursed them that they will meet a suitable end in this material world. But because 7 of them didn't play a huge role, their suffering would be less. But the one who was initially initially tempted by all this, he would have to suffer a longer time. And that was actually Bhishma. So Bhishma suffered a long period of time, whereas the other 7, their suffering was very little, and they were allowed to take over the position of Vasu again as soon as Ganga put them in the water.
That's so cool. Even I didn't know that. Thank you, Prabhuji.
How did Vichitravir pass away?
Now not like, I'm not really sure about this one, but from what I've heard is that Vichitravirya was really unfit to be king from the start. Like he he would never sort of focus at times of whenever, because of course kings and princesses, they're taught so much about how to fight and how to, everything about a Kshatriya should be taught. He never really used to focus. I think he used to also drink Madeira a lot, which was like a really influential substance at that time. I guess something like alcohol would be. So he would never really focus, and he died.
Yeah, I think it said it was like TB. He got, a disease which he succumbed to it. And he was, as you said, it's quite a weak person. Yeah, correct.
Which god did Nakula and Sahadev descend from?
The Ashwini twins?
Yes, Lord Ashwini. They came from them.
The twins, Ashwini twins.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was all of our questions.
Well done. Thank you. Anybody else? Any questions? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. So what we can do is next week can be part 2 of the Mahabharata. And today we have a quiz. So, oh yes, Ishwari Kishori, would you like to share the links and all that?
Sure, Prabhuji.
And we'd like to thank Pari for a very good class. And your knowledge is just going to expand now. Because every time you hear something, you're just going to add it to your memory bank. It happened to me, you just keep adding. So you will really cherish these pastimes more and more. So thank you for taking that on and explaining it nicely. And Ishwari Kishori, I'd like to thank you both, the 11 and 12-year-olds. And they've produced a quiz, which they said to me is pretty challenging. So
am I gonna have to take part?
You can if you want.
I'm good. If it's challenging, I'm good. I'll stay here.
So
you have to take part.
Oh gosh.
Okay, good. Right. Thank you. So it's quiz.com and the PIN number 672452. So Ishwari, would you like to share your screen?
Sure, Prabhuji.
Sorry? Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Go for it. Very good. Many have joined. Some have not. So please join if you want to. If you are a little delayed in joining, just let us know and we'll wait for you. Otherwise, we can start quite soon. Anybody waiting to join? Should we wait for anybody?
Me, Prabhuji, 1 second.
Of course. You are unable to join. Charula, okay, no problem. Oh, well done, Charu. You got in. Thank you.
Prabhuji, am I there yet?
Sorry?
Am I there yet?
No, we can't see your name. Yes, you're in.
Okay.
So, yes, you may begin. Huh?
What is the Bhagavad Gita? It is the Song of God, a fiction book, a magazine, all of the above. And the right answer was the Song of God. Who was able to summarize all the scriptures in the Bhagavad Gita? Lord Krishna, Arjun, Dhritarashtra, or Sanjay? And the right answer was Lord Krishna. True or false? The Lord summarized Shruti and Smriti in the Bhagavad Gita. And the correct answer was true. What is the essence of the whole Bhagavad Gita? Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, or Bhakti Yoga? And the correct answer was Bhakti Yoga. What is the most important part of a book? The beginning, the middle, the end, or all of the above? The correct answer was the middle. Karma means this is a fill in the blank one. It meant activity and actions and deeds as well, but I didn't put deeds on there. So they were all correct. How many basic truths are there? 5, 10, 80, or 100? And the correct answer was 5. How many verses did Dhritarashtra speak in the Bhagavad Gita? 574, 1, 84, or 41? And the correct answer was 1. What do we learn from the Bhagavad Gita? Teaches us how to cope in the battlefield of life, teaches us to be greedy, why we act the way we do, teaches us how to cope. This is a multi-select. And the correct answer was the first and the third one. True or false? Only certain people are qualified to read the Bhagavad Gita. The correct answer is false. What do we need to understand the Gita? We need to have a learning mood. We need to skim through. We need to have an open mind. All of the above. This is a multi-select. And the correct answer was the first and the third option. The Gita was spoken on the... It's a fill in the blank. All of them were correct. It's just that we didn't put Kurukshetra. True or false? When you are old and you read the Gita, your problems go away. And the correct answer was false. The Bhagavad Gita, as it is unique because Srila Prabhupada translated it word by word. It is the largest book ever made. Everyone has read it. All of the above. And the correct answer was the first one. In the Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada has based his commentary on Srila Sridhara Swami, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Sripad Ramanujacharya, and all of you. And the correct answer was all of the above. Why should you learn the Bhagavad Gita? To show Krishna you're serious about understanding him, so you can become rich, so you can become a king, queen, all of the above. And the correct answer is the first one.
Excellent questions.
Those were really good questions.
Second was Bharat Sanman, and first was Pari.
See, I warned you guys. I didn't want to play, but you forced me, Ishwari Kishori.
That's good. You should play every time. That's good. Wow. Very good.
Haribo, that was so good, Ishwari Kishori. Well done.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliantly done. Thank you. Okay, thank you everybody for joining. Any questions arising from the quiz? But no, it was good. Really well done. Thank you so much. Huh?
Thank you everyone so much for joining, for listening to me speak for at least 35 minutes. It was really great to have you all here. And we will have a part 2 of the Mahabharat next week. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Neelam Ben. Oh, Neelam Ben, are you coming next